So you've been hearing a lot of people say how you should, use this free time while you're under quarantine from the coronavirus to get ahead of other people, right? And in this video, I basically want to talk about what are the best opportunities and how can you actually leverage this virus to get yourself ahead. And before we start, I want to go back to the idea of why it is so important to actually take advantage of this virus, not just let things happen to you and sit at home and do nothing. You actually have to actively do things and take advantage of all the opportunities that are coming out of this because of the virus. If you don't do that, then in a few years, when this is all over, you're going to look back and regret this because you're going to see how big of an opportunity you actually missed. And the whole idea of why this virus is going to separate the winners and the losers is because of the fact that it affects everyone. It affects everyone. The whole population on Earth is affected by it, some more than others, but it's something that affects everyone. And so how you emerge from this really comes down to your personality and what you do during this time, right? And one of the key concepts is that this virus has given everyone a lot more time. So if you think about it, especially people who used to work in laboring jobs, they now stay at home and they don't have a job right now, right? They have so much free time. Same with people who can work from home. Even if you work remotely, you're still going to get more time because you're cutting time from commuting, cutting time from getting dressed, going to the office, settling in. You really just get a lot more free time. And so if you don't take advantage of this free time that you have now, and other people are, then it means you're letting people just get ahead of you. But if you can take advantage of this time and make the most of it, then it'll be the other way around, where you can take advantage, where you can get ahead of everyone else and really take a big stride forward to your goals, whatever your goal is. Your goal is. It could be just to become financially free. It could be, become wealthy, learn something new. But for this channel, we usually talk about, how can you become financially free, and from that perspective, this is really one of the best opportunities because first of all, you have so much time, and there are also a bunch of other reasons I'll discuss. But the reason I wanted to do this video is basically I came across this photo here, and it's kind of trending on social media right now. But it really summarizes what I feel as well. I think there are some things it misses out, which I'll talk about later on. But it basically says if you don't leave quarantine with new skills, your side hustle started, more knowledge, you never lack time, you lack discipline. And that's completely true, right? You lack time. And time is basically what is so disruptive about this virus. It gives everyone time. And yes, it's a horrible thing that's happening to so many people. Everyone's sick, people are dying. But on the other hand, for people who are not affected, it gives us a lot more time. And so how you use that time is going to really determine where you are after this thing ends in society, right? Because if you think about it, society is really just like a race, and your position is relative to other people. So if you don't move during this time, everyone else is going to overtake you. It's not stationary, right? So, and I think when it comes to this race of life, whatever you call it, there are really three main things you want to look at in order to be happy, which I've outlined here. So you have health, you have wealth, and love and relationships. So obviously this little picture here only talks about wealth. It doesn't really talk about health or love and relationships, but which I'll briefly touch on because it's not really the main topic of this channel. But let's dive right in, okay? So when it comes to wealth, there are really two main areas, I think. First is you have to gain the necessary skills to learn how to do certain things. And then once you've learned the skills, you then start to implement it, because there are so many things that you simply don't learn or don't know how to do unless you actually start doing it themselves. You can read a book, you can read for however long you want, you can read for years, but until you actually take action and put into practice of what you've learned, you will never be able to gain the experience you need to be good at that thing, right? Because, for example, you can read about playing basketball all you want, but unless you actually start playing, you're not going to get better at playing basketball. So it's the same with business or with anything that generates an income. And I think if you think about the ratio, the time you spend on getting knowledge is about 20%, I think. And then the implementation is 80%. Meaning if you have 10 hours, you really want to spend 2 hours learning about the the fundamentals of how you actually implement that skill, and then you spend 8 hours of the 10 hours to practice and refining your skill sets. And of course, during that 8 hours, you can go back to your books, your courses, reading articles to enhance your speed of progression. But the whole idea is, you don't wait until you don't like just read and read and read for hours and hours and hours. You read for 20% of the time you have, and then you start implementation. So that's a key thing, because a lot of people just get stuck on this research phase and they never move past that. They research for years and years and years, and by the time they implement it, the opportunity is already gone, right? So in our case, let's say, realistically, most people are going to be under quarantine for, let's say, around 10 weeks if you're in the US, I think. Then, you would spend 2 weeks, maybe less, reading on something you want to do, and then for the rest of the quarantine, you want to start implementing it, right? And so when it comes to knowledge, you want to read books, and you can read from Kindle, and you can order books online on Amazon. Another good thing is also courses. So courses are really great. I think in some cases are even better than books, because what it does is it condenses all information about a specific area in one single course. So for example, you want to learn how to launch a product. You could either read it like 10 different books, or you could do one single course, which has already helped you organize that information into the right sequence, right? So courses are basically highly organized sequence of information that helps you digest it and implements it. So courses are really good, especially during this time when so many different providers are providing free courses. So I'll link this article to the description, but essentially a lot of these courses typically cost hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars, but now it's free. So personally, I actually did this Harmon Brothers agency course, which teaches you how to create a really highly converting script for any marketing materials you have, videos, or even copywriting. So, I recommend you to do a course that you actually are interested in your specific area, right? So once you do that, then you can start implementing. Once you spend like 20% of your time learning about the area you want to operate in, you can start implementing it. And there are really three main opportunities that I think anyone can take advantage of during this time. So you would be, once you identify the opportunity you want to take advantage of, you can then start reading about it or doing a course on it, and then you spend the rest of your time implementing it, right? So the first, I'm going to just make this bigger actually. So the first opportunity are what I call the quick cash opportunities. These are opportunities where it kind of takes advantage of the lack of supply of certain products right now. So these are like kind of short-term opportunities that help you make a bunch of cash, but then in long term, when supply starts to meet demand, then they go away. So these will be your people who are trying to, sell your masks right now at really high prices, flipping masks. People selling, hoarding hand sanitizers and then selling them, or people who are just, trying to create ventilators. And I think if you're trying to create a product that actually is relatively new and adds value and helps people, like for example creating ventilators that are easy to make, right? That's fine. I think that's good. You're giving value away, you're helping people, and you're making money at the same time. But if you're just a merchant, like a flipper, just buying masks from China at a cheap price and then reselling it at a really high price, then to be honest, I think that's not very it's not a very nice thing to do. And to be honest, it's such a short-term opportunity, and I don't think it's worth your effort to actually do that, because once the virus is over, once the supply catches up with the demand, then it's pretty much over. And actually, as we're speaking right now, the supply of masks and all these different medical supplies are already ramping up significantly across the world, especially in China. So very soon, these opportunities will actually disappear. So I don't recommend you guys go into this right now. The second opportunity, which I think are more lucrative in the long term, are to launch specific products at this time, because a lot of businesses are scaling back on their ad spend and delaying their product launches because of the fact that most people are now at home and they think they're not spending as much. But based on what I see with Decade Digital in my own digital agency, and from what I've heard from speaking to other people in this space, is that That's not really true. When you look at certain metrics such as click-through rates or conversion rate, it is going down. It is true, and the reason is because more people are now serving the web. More people are staying at home, clicking on websites, and so when the numbers of website visitors increase, then obviously, if your number of purchasers or subscribers stays the same, then the conversion rate is going to go down. But it doesn't mean that your absolute number of purchases or absolute number of signups is going down. In fact, for a lot of products, it's going up because of how many people are now purchasing products, how many people are staying at home and surfing the web, right? So don't just look at your metrics, but actually look at the end result, which is how are my sales? What is my revenue looking like? And when we look at those numbers across most of our businesses, a lot of them are actually improving, right? But this again comes down to your type of products. It is true that some products, such as products that are more catered towards the outdoor type of audience, like backpacks or anything to do with traveling, or products that require two people to use together, like a barbecue grill or something like that. Outdoor things are obviously not doing so well because people are not planning on going back out in the short term. But if you're talking about products that are used at home, so like, for example, home gym systems or like pull-up bars and things like that, they're literally selling out. They can't even meet the demand because most people, everyone who's at home right now, wants one of these home gym systems. So, for example, right now would be a great time to launch a home gym product, or yoga mats and all those things. I'm sure are really selling very well right now as well. And there are just a bunch of ideas. Basically, you have to think from the perspective of someone who's stuck at home, someone who can't do exercise, someone who's bored at home. What would be products they want to buy? They would want to buy board games to play with their household. They would want to buy home gym systems to stay fit. They would want to buy courses because they want to learn, using this time to learn, as we talked about. So think about what your product is and whether it is a good time for you to launch right now. If it is, then I recommend you actually expedite your development process and try and launch this product as soon as possible, because once this virus goes away, your launch might not be as successful as if you launch now because of the extra demand you're getting from people staying at home. That leads me on to courses, of course. So as I mentioned, people are doing more courses now because they are stuck at home. So you can also be on the other side of the equation. So instead of just consuming courses, you can be the actual one. You can actually be a one to consume it. And a really good course that you can do on how to do courses is Kevin David's Digital Secrets. Digital Course Secrets. So this is actually a course that teaches you how to do courses by this guy called Kevin David. Most of you might know him, but he's made like $10 million from selling courses, so he knows what he's talking about. And then there is, of course, investing, right? Everyone is talking about investing. And again, you want to go against what most people are doing. What most people are doing is they're pulling out their money from the stock market because they're seeing everything plummet. But this is perfect time to invest right now because things are cheap, things are at a discount. And when you look at a graph of how the S&P 500 goes across like the last 20 years, so when you look across the last 20 years, the trend line is always going to go up despite these short-term dips you're seeing here from financial crisis or whatever have you. And we're experiencing one of those again, right? It's going to drop. I don't know when it's going to bottom, but what I can tell you for sure is that over the long term, it's going to follow this trend of increasing. And so what you want to do now is to actually, if you're holding stocks already, to just hold it until it increases again. It might be the next 6 months, might be the next year, a few years. I don't know, but I don't recommend selling now. And if you have cash on hand, this is the time you should be investing. You should be picking a point in the next few weeks or in the next few months when you think it's going to get the worst, when it's going to be the worst point possible for the economy, for the U.S. economy. And a proxy metric to use might be how many people are dying from this virus or how many people are getting infected from this virus. And again, I want to say it's a horrible thing that that's happening to these people, but that's kind of outside our control. We're not the government, we're not the medical healthcare workers. There's not much we can do about it. And what we can do, though, is to make the best use of this situation in light of these tragedies. So what I would do, again, is to pick a metric that you want to use, right? And think about where you think it's going to be, when you think it's going to get the worst. If you think it's going to get the worst in 2 weeks, or when you think it's going to get the worst when there are 10,000 deaths in the U.S., whatever it is, then at that point you want to invest in the stock market, and then you just wait. You hold it for the long term, and in a few years you're going to see it double or triple in value, right? Because that's what happens with the economy over time. So what I would do is I would open an account with Vanguard or something like that, and then purchase an ETF that actually tracks the S&P 500. You can go more in depth and buy certain specific companies, the stock of specific companies, but that requires a lot of research. What you want to do probably is just to bet on the economy as a whole, and the way you do that is you can buy the S&P 500. So again, I'm not an expert on investing. If you want to learn more about investing, I'm sure there are loads of other channels on YouTube that could teach you that. So those are the 3 things I recommend you get into today in order to, make the best use of the situation. You don't have to get into all 3. So even if you just get into just one thing, out of investing, launching a product-based business, or quick cash opportunity, if you just get into one of those 3 things, not just learning it though, right? You have to implement it as well. Then I would consider the time that you have right now from the virus as not having been wasted. But if you emerge from this and you haven't launched a product-based business, you haven't, invested, you haven't done anything, then you've wasted your time. Honestly, that's the cold hard truth, right? And besides those opportunities and doing one thing from those 3 things, what I would also recommend is for you to, focus on these 2 other things, which people again are not really talking about because it's not cool. It's not, it's not attention grabbing, but having wealth is not enough. It's something I always talked about in achieving financial freedom. The whole point is you want the freedom to do other things, because once you're free, you're not going to continue making money. I mean, some people do that, but for most people, once they have the time, they want to travel. They want to spend time with their family and friends, with their loved ones, right? So you have to think about what your true end goal is, and for most people, it's going to be, this number 3, love and relationships. So during this time, when you're stuck at home, don't just work on your computer the whole day. Spend some time with your family if you're with them. Spend some time with your girlfriend, your significant other. Same with health. You're getting so much time at home, sitting around all day. You really should go out for a run, or at least do some exercise at home. I know you can't go to the gym, but for me personally, recently, I started looking into calisthenics, which is basically a sport that allows you to do exercises at home without any equipment, like push-ups, air squats, and all that sort of stuff. So try and get into something that you can do at home. And I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this don't do this sports or don't do any exercise regularly. And I don't want to sound like your mom, okay? But there are 2 actual good reasons for you to do sport. That's actually very, very it's not just like, oh, it's good for your health long term, but there are very immediate benefits. So one is when you do sports, your productivity actually increases. If you sit around all day, your cognitive abilities actually just go down after a few days. So when you do exercise every few days, you're boosting your productivity, and that's going to have a direct impact on how successful you are in terms of learning and implementing what you've learned. And the second thing, of course, is no matter how wealthy or rich you are in the future, if your health sucks and your back hurts every step you take, you can't enjoy life, right? So even for the first reasons of productivity, you should be doing exercises every few days. So I know that's not a very typical video that I do, and not really related to not really related to business strategy in mobile gaming, or not related to launching physical products and crowdfunding, but I think it's a very topical thing that a lot of people are wondering how I can make the best use of the current situation. And so I hope this video really motivates you to take action today, because if you wait around, sometime soon this opportunity is going to go away, and you're going to speak to your friend after it's over at the office, and he's going to tell you, oh, by the way, I invested all this money into the stock market. I launched this new business which really took off like a rocket. And you're going to think to yourself, like, that could have been me, but I wasted my opportunity, and I'm gonna have to wait 10 years for the next opportunity to do something like that. So don't be that guy, right? Take action today. And if you like content like this about business strategy, steps you should be taking to achieve financial freedom, then subscribe, like this video, or leave a comment if you have any other questions.